say Doctor Who can be a bad influence on people, but it's not like I've let anything I've ever seen on TV. Hey, Christel. Hike! 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 Now, first things first, I've been incredibly impressed with Series 8 so far. I mean, who hasn't? Peter Capaldi is a god, the 2 episodes we've seen so far are pretty much better than all of Series 7 put together, and visually Doctor Who has never looked so lush. I'm starting to believe it's not going to be possible to get a bad episode this series, and even if we do, Peter Capaldi's eyebrows will be enough to save it. I have to say I'm not that big on legends and swashbuckling. My favourite kind of Doctor Who episode is set in the present day, or in distant futures or distant planets, so when we get a story set in the past, I'm not usually that excited. And when I say past, I mean like medieval times, because if we were to get a story set in London in the 80s, with an evil alien race disguised as a synth pop band, and Peter Capaldi goes undercover dressed as a new romantic, and the Pet Shop Boys make a cameo singing West End Girls, then that is a different story. This episode is in stark contrast to the 2 episodes we've seen so far. There's a clear shift in tone. It's brisk, comedic, tongue-in-cheek, and the lightest on Who references, but with a 12 episode run, an episode like this was coming sooner or later. We've had 2 rather dark episodes and we've got Listen next week, so it seemed like the perfect place to put it. It's been so refreshing to have a grumpier and darker Doctor after Matt Smith and David Tennant, so when I read the Doctor would be visiting Robin Hood and his merry men, I was worried Doctor Who would fall back into its old ways and become silly again. Now don't get me wrong, an element of silliness has been inherent to Doctor Who since it began. It is a kid show after all. But because I've really enjoyed the darker tone of this series so far, I was really worried about this episode. However, I needn't have worried. Because we've got a grumpy, cynical Doctor, this actually works really well to create comedy. When the Doctor meets Robin Hood, someone who 1, he refuses to accept as real, and 2, can't stand how jolly he is, this paves the way for loads of banter and loads of wisecracks between the 2 characters. We are also treated to some really lovely physical comedy, a sword versus spoon fight, and some Venusian Aikido, which is fantastic to watch. Peter Capaldi is a fantastic comedic actor and it's really nice to see this shine. The comedy between the Doctor and Robin Hood is fantastic. The rest of the episode, on the other hand, falls rather flat. The Sheriff didn't really stand out very much as a villain. He was a little bit bog standard, which is a shame because they could have done quite a lot with this part. If it wasn't for Ben Miller, this could have been really, really bad. I thought the robots looked great, but again they were a little bit in the background and didn't really seem very threatening. It was nice to see the inside of a spaceship bang in the centre of a Robin Hood story, but I was expecting to see more of a reaction from Robin Hood. Maybe it was just too far from anything he knew, so unrecognisable that his brain failed to compute it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Having said that, maybe these elements were toned down so that Robin Hood and the Doctor could take centre stage. Clara has been given a little bit more character in this series, and it's great to see more of her personal life. This week, however, we find out that she takes year 7s for Taekwondo. Really? Is that some kind of last minute attempt to make it look really interesting? If it was, I didn't believe it. If you're a Taekwondo teacher, you have to be pretty experienced. So why didn't she hit the robot with the pole instead of just pose with it? Bit pathetic, really. So if she is such an experienced martial artist, why haven't we seen any yet? On the upside, visually the episode looked beautiful. It wasn't as rich as Into the Dalek or Deep Breath, but it was as beautiful as you could make a forest look. Doctor Who has come such a long way visually, and Series 8 is shaping up to be the best yet. Also, the pacing of this series is much better. We're getting longer scenes and a lot more dialogue, which is giving the actors a real chance to act. Despite the silliness of this episode, it had a meaningful message about the Doctor and his status as a hero. The Doctor didn't believe that Robin Hood was real and just a legend made up to give the people of England hope at desperate times. But the Doctor soon realises that Robin Hood is in fact a real man and a legend. At the very end of the episode, Robin Hood says to the Doctor, "I'm just as real as you are." So in this episode, Robin Hood is a metaphor for the Doctor, and on parting he says that it doesn't matter if they're forgotten, as they will inspire people to be heroes in their name. We are continuing to see the Doctor struggle with his identity, and I think this will build as the series goes on. He snaps at Clara on a couple of occasions when he says, "When did you start believing in possible heroes and I'm not a hero?" Because even though the Doctor saves lives, it's not without death and destruction. Perhaps it will come to a head at the end of the season. Overall, I think this was just a fun episode and nothing more. The reliance on the more comedic parts of the episode mean that repeated viewings lose the appeal. Is it a hardcore Doctor Who story? No. Is it the kind of story that you reach for when you've got a spare hour or just for a bit of fun? I think so. But this series continues to feel fresh and confident, and that's good enough for me. So, what's my verdict? Well, I didn't expect to enjoy this episode, so I chose surprise. Is it a fun and light-hearted Doctor Who episode that I can just watch when I've got a bit of spare time on my hands? I think so. Sunday viewing. Is it a really complex Doctor Who episode that I really need to pay attention to understand? Not really. Watching the background at parties. I wasn't that excited about Robot of Sherwood, but it was okay. In fact, it was better than I'd expected. Having said that, is it an episode that I'll be raving about in years to come? I don't think so. I'm not complaining though. In my opinion, this is the best that Doctor Who has ever been, and if this series continues like this could turn out to be my favourite series yet. And that concludes my review of Robot of Sherwood. Now what are you waiting for? Get out of here! Hike!
It had Zoe Ashton and Michael Smiley in it, so I knew it would be good as soon as the cast was announced. Sorry. Billy?
Hey Livy, it's Billy here. Got a joke for you. You know those bronze Daleks that they're using at the moment? Hold on.